Hey, real quick before we start the podcast, if you have listened to more than one episode, can you do me a favor and rate and review the show? Now, I'm not big on asking for favors, but we really want to get this podcast listed in the top of all health and fitness podcasts, not just the fitness category. This will take you less than a minute, and if you could do that, that would make us friends forever. And since we refuse all sponsors on the show, this will be my only ask rather than telling you to go check out some supplement or product we don't actually believe in, like every other podcast out there. So please rate and review. Okay, that's it. To the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Just me today. And today I'm going to be doing a different type of video or podcast. I'm going to be talking about my own personal training, some of my goals right now, and specifically the programming I am tackling and how to go about it. Now, in future videos on the YouTube channel, I actually want to show what my training is. So if you are just listening right now on the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast, make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel where I won't be able to show training, obviously in audio only format, but that is what's coming. Today, it's more talking about what I'm going to be doing, what I've actually been doing for the last couple of weeks, and what the next phase of training for me looks like, and how this all got started. So quick backstory. You've probably heard me talk about it multiple times. I went on a quest to do what we call BCT, boring concurrent training. And that's where I was going after a 500-pound back squat and a 5-minute mile in the same day. Ended up getting injured in that process. And every time I would try to add performance, get stronger, get faster, every time I would end up getting hurt again. It was the most frustrating, in all honesty, probably 2 years of my life from a training standpoint. Very frustrating, very just upsetting. It would to not be able to train how I've always trained because every time I felt like I was back to normal, I'd add more volume, add more intensity, and I'd end up breaking myself again. And I've since recovered from all of that, and I've been in a really good spot for the last couple of months. And so I've been adding more and more volume, training, intensity, and things have been great. But what I found was most recently, this past Memorial Day, I did Murph, and I was completely unhappy with my performance in Murph. If you don't know my backstory with the Murph workout, I did it every Saturday for 2 years. And I've done it a lot before that. I've done a lot in between. But ultimately, I had some pretty amazing Murph times, arguably some of the fastest Murph times that have ever been completed. But I have nothing to show for that. I don't have that ability right now, and I don't really like talking about things that you can do in the past. So I want to get that back. I was very pissed off with my performance in Murph this past Memorial Day, really because I've been training. Like when I was hurt, even when I was hurt, I've been training. I've been super consistent in training. I never stopped training. I just wasn't lifting as heavy. And then I had to completely stop running for a very long period of time, which made me pretty bad at running. I'm the worst at running I've ever been right now. And when I brought this back, when I first started bringing it back, it was November, December of last year. And then I still ran into having some lower back issues. And then I had to work on that most of this year. And again, between physical therapy, chiropractic care, all this stuff, I'm feeling great. And I've added a lot of mileage. I even waited before I filmed this video or started to talk about anything, making sure I'm getting enough volume and intensity and mileage under the belt before I start talking about these things publicly again. And then, oh, you know what? I'm injured again and I can't do anything. So I think I'm in a great spot right now. And I want to talk about what I'll be doing and what my goals are right now, and specifically the programming behind it. So what I'm looking to do right now is I just want to get really good at calisthenics and running. One, because it's a safe way to push yourself right now. Like for me, I want to push myself here before I start pushing myself under the barbell again, before I try to go any heavy weights. So I'm really just wanting to get better at calisthenics and running, ultimately because I want to crush Murph the next time that I do it. I really don't want a piss poor performance like my last one. And so I'm going to be talking today about what my goals are and the overall programming to get there. But I would say some of my goals are, number one, the worst part of Murph this past Memorial Day was the run. So number one is I'm going to want to be able to run sub-6. So I want to go less than 6 minutes on the mile. That's my first goal. And that's something that honestly I could almost always do. And the fact that I'm not there right now is pretty frustrating. I could even go sub-6 during a Murph workout. And so now I have not tested my current time. I'm probably going to record my next baseline, even though I've been running, I've been getting some mileage under my belt. I didn't want to go just baseline right now because I didn't know what it was going to be. So after a couple weeks of running, I'm going to film the baseline. I'm going to put it on YouTube and see where I'm at after getting at least 4 weeks of, decent amount of mileage under my belt. So the first goal is going to be sub 6 minute mile. Number 2, I want to get 25 to 30 strict pull-ups. I think the most I've ever been able to do is probably 26. And this is fully strict. And when I talk about strict pull-ups, I'm talking about as long as you're hanging from the bar, it's fine. It's kind of the Marine Corps standard. Like as long as you're still hanging from the bar, you can continue to do pull-ups and they count. So if I'm resting at the bottom, that's fine, but I can't drop from the bar. Once I drop from the bar, it's over. So if I do film any videos and you're like, oh, well, you're resting at the bottom, yeah, that might happen. I might knock out 20 and then I might rest at the bottom and try and do 5 more or maybe even 10 more. So that's ultimately what I'd like to do. Number 3, I would like to get somewhere in the 70 plus push-up range. That's somewhere I've definitely been before, but I haven't been in a long time. I think, when I was in the military, in the Air Force, they do a minute of push-ups, and I could very consistently get, 60 to 70 push-ups in that minute, kind of at the peak Air Force calisthenics days. And so I want to get back into that range. So this is in a minute, not just, there's no resting in this. You can rest in the top, but this is in 60 seconds or less. So the 6 minute mile, sub 6 minute mile is just going to be sub 6 minute mile. I want to run fast, strict pull-ups, no time limit, 25 to 30. And then push-ups 70 or more, with being able to do all of that in a minute or less. So those are the goals right now. That's all I want to get good at. And then number 4, tying all these together, is just going to be fast Murph time. I'm not actually putting a goal on this one yet. That'll be kind of phase 2. I really just want to put in the fast miles, get the strict pull-ups, get the push-ups. I kind of have my baseline for my Murph, and I'll share more about that in future videos. But from this past Memorial Day, what my Murph time was, and then get into it a little bit more. So let's dive into what the programming looks like for something like this. Now, the first thing and the hardest thing that it is going to be to tackle is going to be the run. And I'll talk about calisthenics in a second, but the run is always going to be the hardest thing to get faster. And it takes the most amount of time. And I want to talk about that for a second. So the only real way to increase or get faster in running is you could just practice running faster. And that's what a lot of people do. You want to, they just, I want to run faster. So they start running sprints or something like that. And that will work, but it has a cap. Like it has a definite cap. It's not going to be the most long-term. It's not the best long-term training program. Like if I just wanted to squeeze or knock off 30 to 45 seconds off my mile time right now, sure, I could just do some speed work for a couple weeks and I would achieve that. But if you want to be able to run sub 6 effortlessly, or during a Murph workout, should I say, something where it's just a part of something else, then you're going to have to increase your aerobic base. And so the idea of increasing your base is you have to think of your fitness in every regard as a pyramid. And that whole concept actually comes from Louis Simmons, and he talks about it in strength training, and I talk about it in aerobic training. But your fitness is a pyramid, and a pyramid can only be as tall as its base. Okay, so it can only be as tall as its base. So if you want a taller period, you want higher maximum performance, you have to have a larger base. So you have to work on your base material to be able to get any faster, stronger. It works, it's the same in strength and endurance. So what does that look like for endurance training? Well, endurance training, if you want to get faster, you actually have to build your aerobic base, which is going to be a lot of zone 2 training. Specifically, the one that we like to use. I know Zone 2 has gotten more popular a lot over the years. We've been talking about it for years too. But Phil Maffetone, who was like a triathlon coach, really pioneered this whole method. And he has a lot of ways that you can do it. But the base, like the easiest calculation to find out what your aerobic training zone is, your MAF zone, as Phil Maffetone would call it, is 180 minus your age. So 180 minus your age. And that's going to give you what your base aerobic number, heart rate should be like for your target runs, right? So that is what you're targeting. And he has more specific ways of finding out your zone too, because you could have if you're a really well trained athlete, you could have a higher max heart rate. You could have lower resting heart rate. He takes into account how many sick days you have, all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, if you want to run faster, we're going to have to increase that aerobic base. And to increase that aerobic base, we're going to be doing zone 2 or MAF work. That's what I'm going to be doing a lot of. And so I'll be doing at least 3 days per week of this kind of training. And so 180 minus my age, hitting in the 140 5-ish range, somewhere around there is what I'll be shooting for to have my heart rate for these long duration aerobic base building runs. And they're kind of annoying because they're not speed work. They're not actually running any faster. And then 2 days per week, that's when I'll work on those things. So I'll work on either just running fast. So like a sustained threshold run, running 1, 2, or even 3 miles at a zone 4, zone 5 pace. Just as not as fast as I can go, but like get into that zone and then maintain that zone for a couple of miles. That zone 4 or even touching into zone 5 if you're going pretty fast. That's going to help me build up my threshold. I'll be doing a ton of base work. And then at the top of the pyramid, I'll be doing a lot of repeat, work. So like hundreds, 200s, 300s, 400s, those kind of things to actually increase my strength and increase my speed. So that's what I'm looking to do. So for calisthenics, for running, that's the main thing that I'm looking to do. What that looks like over the course of a week, 3 days of this MAF zone 2 work, and then 2 days is just going to be either threshold training or interval based training. That's what I'm looking to do. And then when you get to calisthenics, that's when I think it gets a little bit more challenging, and people really don't know as much about these kind of things. Like, you really have to know what you're doing to program calisthenics. And so let me dive into that. I'll get a new page here. But when you get into the calisthenics world, you're going to run into basically kind of a weird world as I've like researched it, and and I've done this over the years. But you'll get into a lot of people doing like human flags and like all this kind of stuff, like but that's not what, if you're looking to get better at like calisthenics for Murph, that stuff really doesn't matter as much. There's a lot of amazing things bodies can do, like gymnastics with body weight stuff. That doesn't mean that you're going to be awesome at doing crap ton of pull-ups for time or squats or push-ups and all that kind of stuff. And so when I look at calisthenics, I look at it from a strength training method, and so when I'm looking at it through the strength training lens, I look at, there's max effort, there's sub-max, and then there's dynamic. Again, these are some of the most proven strength methods. Again, more stuff from Westside Barbell, things that Louis Simmons talks about. With the max effort method and the sub-max effort method and the dynamic effort method, they're very easy to implement with a barbell, but they get a little bit harder when you talk about calisthenics. So let me talk about each one of these. So the max effort method is really just doing something maximally, right? It's just going to be the maximum amount of time or the maximum load you can handle on the bar. Submax is really just putting in like the hypertrophy work. So it's going less than your max, say 60%, doing it for reps. It builds up muscle, it builds up repetition volume, all those kind of things. And then dynamic is the speed element. And now these are the three proven ways to get stronger and to use your muscles better, and to put it in simple terms. And so how do we take those kind of ideas and put them into a calisthenics training program? Well, with the dynamic effort method, you can do two things. You can do fast calisthenics. And when I say fast calisthenics, I'm not just talking about doing a push up faster than normal, because that's really most people do push ups as fast as they can already when they're doing push ups. So when I'm talking about fast calisthenics, I'm talking about explosive. So something like a clapping push-up or a plate push-up. Those are what you're going to be doing when you are looking to get more speed, and speed produces power. And so if you're practicing moving faster, you're becoming more powerful. This is what's actually making you stronger. So you want to make sure that you're doing fast calisthenics, explosive calisthenics. So that's one way to do it. Is like I mentioned, you could do clapping push-ups. You could do that kind if you're like really advanced in pull-ups. You could even do, I don't want to say a clapping pull-up, but a pull-up so fast that you could like raise your hands up off the top of the bar. That is a very advanced move. Or even being able to do that on ring rows, things like that. But an even better way, because fast calisthenics, they tap out really fast. Like, yeah, okay, we got clapping push-ups, we got some crazy pull-ups. I'm talking about like who can do some of these things and who can really throw them in. And so the other thing that you can do is accommodating resistance. So for accommodating resistance, think about if you've ever seen someone put chains on a barbell. What happens when you're squatting and you have chains on a barbell? All the links are on the ground. And when you start squatting up and it's going up higher and higher, more chains or more links are being slowly added to that weight. So as you go up, the weight is being accommodated. Now, we don't need to add chains into our calisthenics, but bands. We can do a lot of banded training. And this is the best way to add a more dynamic style of training into your calisthenics, and is often missing, because everyone has the submax effort method in their program if you're doing calisthenics. But if you add bands, you're really going to become, a very powerful athlete and very good at calisthenics very fast. So what does it look like to add bands to calisthenics training? Well, you could wrap a band around your back and put it on your wrists and do push-ups. So when you're going to that top of that push-up, you have accommodating resistance. You could do this with sit-ups. You could attach a band to a kettlebell and put it around your chest and under your armpits. And every time you sit up, as you increase your range of motion, you're getting resistance on the band, making the pull-up a little bit harder. Likewise, on a pull-up, you could wrap the band around the kettlebell, and you could wrap that around your traps and down your chest. And so when you're pulling up, you're doing a pull-up, the band is accommodating the resistance as you pull up. The band is anchored to the kettlebell on the ground, just making sure that these kettlebells are heavy enough to where they don't actually move when you are doing these exercises. And so then also with squats, you could wrap, all these bands are giant circles, right? So you could wrap it around your shoulders, step on the band, and then just do your air squats with band. So a little bit of added accommodating resistance. And you can get crazy because there are bands that have, 50 pounds of resistance up to 500 plus pounds of resistance at the top when they're stretched out. And so something to think about. So in a calisthenics program, technically we would not be using only our body. Like, I do think that in a good calisthenics program, you'll have some sort of band or dynamic effort in there. If you wanted to truly be, hey, I'm cals only, You could do all the explosive movements that I was talking about. You just have to find a way to do those in each one of those realms based off of your specific capability. And so this is the missing element in every strength program I've ever seen, and especially when it comes to calisthenics. And these will get you so much. These will get you so much better at calisthenics, so much faster if you're adding dynamic stuff in there. Now, the sub-max and max effort method are a little bit different when it comes to calisthenics. So, max effort in calisthenics, there is no 1 rep max. So typically, what we go to when we're doing max effort is going to be time domain. And I like to keep it more how like the military does it. So maximum amount of reps that you can do in 60 seconds, in 1 minute, in a minute and a half, something like that. Because we don't have a maximal load when we're doing body weight only stuff. So that when there's no 1 rep max, we go to time. And then time becomes our what we're trying to race against to be able to do more. So as I mentioned in my goals, like for push-ups, I want to be able to do 70 plus in a minute, right? So that would be my maximum effort, my maximum time trial. So you want to add these into your training where you have a little bit more of you have more volume being done in a certain amount of time. So it's going to produce better strength gains in calisthenics overall when you're doing this. But another way that I like to do it, I like to look at it differently. And this is more for hypertrophy, but I throw it in the max effort method because with max, you're going to reach failure, right? I mean, you can reach failure in anything, but it happens faster in maximum effort. Like you either can or you can't, right? And when you're trying max attempts. And so the way that I like to do this with calisthenics is time under tension. And this is often missing in calisthenics programs as well. So when we're looking at time under tension, this is where a lot of hypertrophy can be gained. Okay, so this is where a lot of you can actually still build muscle with calisthenics if you are focusing enough with time under tension. And so with time under tension, what that looks like in calisthenics is just doing slow and controlled repetitions. And that's how, the most basic level. I typically recommend like a 2, 2, 2, or a 3, 3, 3 tempo for all of your calisthenics at some point in your program when you're doing when you're trying to get better at them. So that would be 2 seconds on the way down, like on a push-up. So say we start in the arms locked out position, top of the push-up, 2 seconds on the way down, 2-second pause at the bottom, 2 seconds on the way up, 2-second pause at the top. So a lot of slow and controlled movement. It's a lot of time under tension, and this is a proven way to get a lot stronger in calisthenics and we're just in strength in general. Now, there's also a lot of research that says that when you're doing time under tension, the most optimal way to do it is to slow the eccentric portion, but then speed up the concentric portion. And this is also something that Louis Simmons, had in his teaching for Westside Barbell. Is typically you want to go slow and controlled. Like if we just go back to the push-up example, slow and controlled on the way down. You can pause at the bottom, but then on the way up, explode on the way up. There's not a lot of reason to go slow on the concentric phase of a lift or of a repetition. But my argument backwards to that is if you're not actually well trained and you're not that good at calisthenics yet, I think that you should just do everything slow and controlled, assuming you're doing all 3 of these things in your program. So if you're doing all 3 of these things in your program and you're not that great at calisthenics, don't worry about the concentric eccentric phase. Just go slow on the way down, hold it, slow on the way up, hold it, and just do repetitions like that. You're gaining more motor control and you're gaining better control over your muscles, and you're learning a lot more in doing so. And I think that's going to be better for you. Then in the next phase of training, you can worry about going like, okay, I'm going to do 4 seconds on the way down, 2-second pause, explode up. But that's as you're getting more advanced. So you want to get as much time under tension as possible. Now, if you're doing these 2 things, if you're doing time under tension and you're doing either fast or accommodating resistance, you are going to get so much better at calisthenics than you've ever been, because most of the time, all people do to try and get better at calisthenics is what I'll end with here, and that's the sub-max effort method. And this is just do them. That's it. Sub-max effort when it comes to calisthenics is just doing repetitions. So doing 100 reps a day, 200 reps a day, 300 reps a day, whatever it is, that's all the sub-max effort method is going to be. There's no other component here. There's just do them. And so this is what you want to look like, what you want a calisthenics program to look like if you want to get a lot better at it. So you got to have the dynamic effort in there, doing fast calisthenics, explosive, have some accommodating resistance with bands. For the max effort method, you want to put some time domain. See how many repetitions you can squeeze into a minute, doing that, once, twice a week. And then you want to get a lot of time under tension, maybe only doing 5, 7, 8, 10 reps at a time, but holding with these 2-2-2 tempos or the 3 tempos, something like that. Then after all that, you want to be able to do just put in the reps, 30 reps, 40 reps, 50 reps, every single set, and doing that for every single exercise. So this would be doing it for the push-up, for the pull-up, for the sit-up, for the squat, all of these things. And if you're doing all of these things, all 3 methods in one training session, and you're doing all 4 of the exercises I just mentioned, and you're doing this for multiple sets, this is easily an hour to an hour and a half training session. These are not easy training sessions. Sometimes people think that when you move to calisthenics training, like you're taking it easy or whatever, but the fact that your body can recover really easily from these things most of the time, and the fact that if you are not training with a barbell or kettlebell or anything like that anymore, these training sessions need to be hard, because this is not a time to relax and lose a whole lot of gains because you decide to hop on a calisthenics and running program. You need to be doing all of these things, and it can be very, very challenging. And then on the running side, it's putting in the miles that are appropriate for you. I've gone so slow in increasing my mileage. Before I even filmed this, I was only doing 5 miles per week to make sure that I wasn't going to get injured. And then I increased just by 10 to 15%. So then I, jumped up to still, between 5 and 10 in miles per week. Then I got to 10 miles per week. Then I got to 11 or 12 miles per week, then 13 miles per week, then 15 miles per week. And right now I'm at the 15 to 20, and I'm just going to hang out there for a little while because that's a decent amount for me at this moment. So I'll probably stay there, and then I might cap out. Like I probably won't ever put in more than 30-ish miles a week in this training program. It'd probably be 25 to 30, something like that, because when you're only trying to run a mile really fast, you don't need 35, 40 miles per week. All right, so that's everything on the running, how to have a remarkable running program and calisthenics program, and how to do them in conjunction. Your body can very easily recover from these things, especially like the first week might be rough, but after that, your body will learn pretty quickly how to recover. So that's it. Now, like I said, I will be updating you all more. So we have a new training cycle kicking off at Garage Gym Athlete right now as this is being published. And I'm actually not participating for the first time in a long time in that 12-week cycle. I'm going all calisthenics and running for my very specific goals. But I wanted to keep the community updated on what I'm doing. And like I said, even more updated, I'll be doing some YouTube videos of some actual training sessions, talking more about these things, and then also sharing my results and filming some of those things, see how I actually do with the mile times, how well my calisthenics improve, all of those kind of things. But that's all I have for this one. If you do want to join our next training session, our next training cycle, now is a great time to do that. And if you want to follow along in what I'm doing, I'll be publishing content on that throughout this cycle as well. But that's it for this one. For everyone who's a part of the community, I appreciate you so much. For anyone who's thinking about joining, go ahead and do that at garagegymathlete.com. Sign up for a free trial. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.